The desert at sundown looked like an altar set for execution, flat, endless, the sky bleeding out its last red prayers over the cracked earth. Somewhere beyond the line of mesquite, the coyotes were already tuning their evening cries. And there, in the center of it all, a woman's head jutted from the ground like a forgotten marker stone, lips cracked, lashes heavy with grit, hair stiff with dried sweat. Her name was Clara Hollis, 27, wife to Nathaniel Hollis, barren in a land where a woman's worth was measured by swaddling cloth and the cry of an heir. The sand clung to her neck like a collar of guilt. They had come at dawn, the husband, the mother-in-law, two farmhands too cowardly to meet her eyes. They had dug a hole while the morning still smelled of sagebrush, muttered prayers to drive the curse out, and planted her like a bitter seed beneath a burning sky. For hours, she listened to their verdict fade into the horizon. She withholds life from the land. She brings drought to the womb. Let the sun sweat the devil out of her. Now, the sun had dipped low, but its memory still burned her skin. The wind shifted, carrying the taste of rust and something older, something that remembered every woman silenced in this desert. Her throat ached from thirst, but worse was the ache below her ribs, where shame had made its home. She thought of the nursery back at the Hollis Ranch, the cradle she had dusted for years, the tiny bonnet sewn in secret hope, now tossed in the barn like a rag. She thought of Samuel's boots walking away, how light they had sounded that morning, as if her absence would lift the house rather than hollow it. Flies gathered at the corners of her eyes. Her tongue was a splinter in her mouth. The horizon blurred. Then hooves. At first she thought them a trick of sound, like the throb in her ears. But the rhythm grew steady, slow, deliberate. Out of the dusk came a man on a bay horse. He did not ride fast, nor did he seem surprised to find her there. He reined in a few paces away, the dust curling around his boots when he dismounted. He was tall, shoulders like carved cedar, skin the color of the clay hills that rose to the east. His hair was tied at the nape with rawhide, his shirt worn thin at the elbows. A bundle lay tied behind the saddle, cornmeal, a child's blanket, a tin cup that clinked when he moved. He studied her with the quiet of a man who had seen the desert make many strange claims. "You're alive." His voice was low, the kind that traveled just far enough. She tried to nod, but the sand held her like an oath. "For now." The man crouched, brushed the grit from her cheek with a callous thumb, and set down his gourd. "Who did this?" "My husband," she whispered, her lips tearing at the word. Said I cursed his line. The man's eyes flicked toward the dying sun, then back to her. They were dark, unreadable, eyes that measured not what a woman had lost, but what she still carried. He untied a spade from his saddle, but instead of using it, he began to dig with his hands, scooping the earth away as if it were ash on a hearth. "You should leave me," she rasped. "This is my punishment." He paused, wiped his hands on his trousers. "The earth does not ask who is worthy to breathe," he said. "It only gives or takes." And he kept digging. The sand yielded slowly, grudgingly, until at last her arms came free, her chest lifted, the night breeze kissed her raw skin. She gasped, half pain, half rebirth. The man offered his coat, heavy and smelling of cedar smoke. She wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. From his gourd, he poured a thread of water into her palm. "Sip," he murmured. It was the sweetest thing she had ever tasted, muddy, warm, holy. "Who are you?" she asked. "Nathaniel Yazzie," he said. "My children are waiting. 4 of them. No mother now." The desert hummed. Somewhere, a hawk cut the darkening sky. He did not tell her what to do, nor ask for her story. He simply offered his hand. The sand was still on her lashes when she took it. The moon followed them home like a pale witness. Clara swayed in the saddle, Nathaniel walking beside the horse, one hand steady at the reins, the other cradling the gourd that held what little water remained. Each hoofstep pressed the desert's hush deeper, and with every mile, the hole in her chest filled not with shame, but with something stranger, uncertainty that did not wound. Nathaniel's homestead lay low against the land, Adobe walls half swallowed by mesquite. Smoke curled from a bent chimney. A wooden gate, more suggestion than barrier, creaked open to a yard littered with children's things, a hoop made from willow, a single worn boot, a doll with its face rubbed blank. The door swung open, and 4 pairs of eyes met hers. Jonas, 12, thin as a fence post, but with the jawline of a man grown too soon. Nora and Naomi, 8-year-old twins with braids undone, their skirts stitched from 2 different bolts of cloth. And Elsie, a baby swaddled in a blanket that smelled faintly of milk gone sour, eyes wide and waiting. They said nothing, only looked, long enough for Clara to wish she were still buried. Nathaniel carried her inside. The room smelled of beans and wood smoke, the walls hung with horseshoes, a broken clock, and a single photograph of a woman with black hair plaited to her waist, his late wife, she guessed. He set her near the fire, left bread on a chipped plate, and lit a lamp that barely tamed the dark. Rest was all he said. Then, to the children, bed. Days moved like slow water. The desert did not ask for her story, and neither did Nathaniel. He left at dawn most mornings, mending fences, tending the few goats that survived the winter. When he returned, his hands smelled of iron and mesquite sap. Clara's limbs trembled from the ordeal. Her shoulders were raw where the sand had pressed them. She learned to carry buckets in halves, to rinse the grit from her hair with rainwater saved in a clay jar. The twins followed her like quiet shadows, bringing her a comb, a handful of dried apples, the kind of childish gifts that said, "You are here, and we see you." One morning, while she mended a shirt at the table, Nora perched behind her and began to braid her hair. Naomi followed, weaving the other side. Their fingers smelled of cornflowers and ash. Clara said nothing, but her chest ached, not with shame now, but with a tremor she could not name. Nathaniel was a man of few words. He sharpened his blade by the door every evening, the rasp of stone on steel steady as a heartbeat. He ate what she cooked without complaint, but without praise either, until one night she baked cornbread with the last spoonful of lard. He ate 2 slices. Then, when she rose early to fetch wood the next morning, she found a 3rd slice set on her seat, wrapped in a square of cloth. It was not a declaration. It was a gesture. And in the hollows where declarations once lived, gestures took root. But the world did not forget her shame so easily. One afternoon, a rider appeared at the fence. His horse was dust-caked, his spurs too clean. A neighbor, Hollis kin by marriage. He spat in the dirt and leaned on his saddle horn. "Heard you took in a cursed one, Yazzie. You think that barren thing will grow you anything but ruin." Nathaniel did not look up from the post he was setting. "You ride a long way to speak poison," he said. The man shrugged, tugged his reins, and rode off. But his words stayed. Clara heard them. Of course she did. That night, while the children slept, she packed her shawl. The desert called to her again, not as a punishment now, but as a place where no one would have to be burdened by her presence. She slipped the latch quietly. The moon was full, the road silvered and empty. Behind her, a soft wail broke the silence. The baby, Elsie, coughing in her sleep. Clara froze. A shadow stretched across the doorway. Nathaniel stood there, rifle in hand, barrel pointed down. Not to stop her, just to mark that he saw. "If the world throws away all that is broken," he said softly, "who will remain to mend it?" His words struck deeper than any curse. She lowered her shawl. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Clara stepped back inside a home not built for her, yet one that had begun to smell faintly of belonging. Spring came not with trumpets, but with a shy green haze along the fence posts. The desert had learned restraint. It gave only what one fought for, and Clara fought with her hands in the dirt. She knelt in a patch of earth just wide enough for 3 rows of beans, the soil coarse and stingy. Each seed she pressed into the ground felt like an apology whispered to herself. "Forgive me for believing I was barren of all things. Forgive me for letting them bury more than my body." Nathaniel never asked what she planted. He only left a bucket near the row each dawn, and by dusk the bucket was always full. The children learned her rhythm before she did. Jonas carried water. The twins poked sticks into the soil, pretending to guard it, and baby Elsie, sticky-fingered and stubborn, called to her from the porch. "Mama?" Clara turned, startled. The word hung in the air, soft and unsure, like a fledgling testing its wings. She didn't correct her. The desert was not done testing them. One afternoon, storm clouds gathered thick and low, dragging the horizon into bruise-colored folds. The air stank of iron. Chickens scattered. Jonas ran in shouting, "Riders!" From the east. Clara's heart sank. She knew those silhouettes, Nathaniel Hollis among them, his coat still stiff from the same wind that once covered her in sand. 4 riders dismounted at the gate, boots sinking in the wet grit. "You," Samuel spat, rain already spattering his hat brim. "You ran off with an Indian and left my name in the dirt." Clara stood on the porch. Her hands were damp with beanstalk soil, her hair unbraided. "I did not run," she said quietly. "I was left." He scoffed. "You're coming back. The cattle are dying, the rain won't hold, and you owe me what's due." Behind her, the twins clung to the doorframe. Nathaniel stepped forward, rifle steady, but his voice calm. "She owes you nothing." Samuel's eyes narrowed. "You'd raise another man's barren wife? Think she'll give you seed? Think she won't curse your land like she cursed mine?" The storm broke open. Rain slashed the earth, wind tearing at coats and skirts. Clara felt it drench her, cold and clean. She could have hidden behind the door. She could have let the men trade their words and rifles. But the sand beneath her skin had hardened into something else now, something that remembered being buried and chose to rise. She stepped forward, onto the mud. "I am no one's curse," she said. Her voice did not shout, but it cut through the storm. "And I will not be carried like a sack of salt between men's debts." Samuel flinched, not from the words, but from the sight of her standing there, alive when he had left her to die. The riders muttered, the rain soaking their saddles. There was no profit here, no shame left to pluck. They turned their horses and rode into the storm. Samuel looked back once, his face blurred by the downpour, and then the horizon swallowed him whole. The storm passed in a single night. The air smelled of mesquite blossom and whetstone. The next morning, Clara found the beans sprouting, pale green curls pushing stubbornly through the dark soil. She pressed her palm to the earth, felt the heartbeat beneath it. Life, after all. Weeks later, the house felt different. Not louder, but fuller. Like a jar that had been emptied for too long now held warm bread and soft laughter. Clara rose before the rooster and boiled coffee, her hands moving without thought, her body no longer stiff with exile. The twins called her Mama without hesitation now. Jonas left a carved bird by her pillow one dawn, a clumsy thing, but its wings were open. Nathaniel came in from the yard one evening, dust on his boots, a sprig of wild sage in his hand. He placed it on the table. No words, only the sage, and the way his fingers lingered a heartbeat too long on hers when she reached for it. Not a proposal, a presence. Years would blur this season into memory, the storm, the garden, the slow weaving of trust. But one thing would remain, Clara's understanding that sometimes what grows after shame is not a child, but a life worth staying for. Reflective ending. And if you, dear wanderer of stories, have ever been buried beneath the world's verdict, if you've ever felt the sand creep up your neck and heard the sky whisper you were nothing, remember this. The earth is patient. It does not care who failed to bloom before. It waits for hands willing to try again. Perhaps you will never cradle what they demanded, but you can still cradle dawn. You can still plant beans in stubborn soil, still feed a house with your breath, still turn burial into a beginning.